right, morning, everybody. Hit on a few things for you and then take any questions that you have. First, if you don't already have it, you will be sent a copy of the letter. I'll be shared with Dominique. We'll give you the letter I've sent to the property owners on South Palafox. None of this will be new news after the meeting that I had with them, but just to clearly formalize one, our appreciation for their investment, and again, many of them for decades in our city, but also our respectful request of them that if they do have small businesses, that during a short spring-ish closure, depending on where they're located on the block, that they help with that. Certainly we look at every downtown business as a contributor to this project, because certainly there'll be sacrifices to that, and we want to commemorate that long term. And what we've said is, if you're a property owner and you have lessees, not property owners, but lessees, that you can help with rent relief during this time, then we would commemorate them in the project long term as a contributor as well. So you'll see all those details, and again, these are private property owners. We aren't. This is clearly not a mandatory thing, but I felt the sense in that room with a lot of amazing people who have invested in the city a long time, and absolutely those property owners are going to see a big benefit of having stormwater, having 46 ADA improvements, all the aesthetic and pedestrian safety improvements. Those are all good things for their businesses and their properties. And so we're asking them if they can, help us step up and help the small business that need it. And in informal terms, I said that as a landlord, as a property owner, the businesses that might be struggling more than others, and a lot of it might depend on the type of business. I mean, I think if you're a law firm or certain types of retail where people are going to come in no matter what, that it might be less of a challenge for you than someone who needs more of the window shopping, that type of thing. But we do maintain, and I think it's misunderstood in the public, obviously all the sidewalks will be completely open throughout the project. There will be no loss of access to it. It would just be the inconvenience of fencing and noise, et cetera. So anyway, we've sent that letter out. We appreciate the IB helping us get that distributed. And again, just wanted to kind of memorialize what we had talked about in that conversation last week. All in all, I feel like those meetings went well. I think I certainly appreciate our team, both internally and the partners in this project for getting us the information so we can convey the facts to both the property owners and the lessees. And I'm looking forward to the conversation tomorrow. The council has requested that meeting, which we're perfectly fine with. It allows us to get all of those facts that we first, out of respect for the business owners and lessees, we wanted to share with first. So that gives us an opportunity to now share all of the details and all of the amazing benefits of this project to the public. I think that's very, very important as well. So looking forward to that conversation tomorrow in council chambers at 5:30. And that is all I've got on that part of it. Happy to take any questions that you have.
Mayor, on the council meeting, does that move up the timeline?
No. So same vote would only, so it's a workshop.
It's a workshop.
Yeah, so workshop only. Ultimately, it gives the 7 council members the ability to ask questions in a public setting about the project.
So you don't expect to have a vote in November? You're expecting
No.
December?
No. The vote has been and will be in November.
Okay, so, all right, okay.
All this is an additional meeting this week ahead of the votes. There's 2 votes that would have to take place, one at CRA,
Right.
one at council. So there's 2 opportunities for the public to speak on this project the following week. This is more of a council workshop.
So it'll be next week. It'll be
Is the
vote.
5th. Yeah.
No, the 5th is tomorrow, but next week will be the vote.
That's correct. I'm sorry. Yes.
The CRA, those votes will happen next week on the
That's
contract.
correct. And remember, the primary function of that, I know you heard that in the meeting previously, but just to reiterate to others, the primary function of that is not because we are on some expedited calendar. It was clear throughout this whole year when we've been talking about design that there is as much consensus as you could realistically expect that if the businesses were going to be closed, that being closed in January and February was valuable because of activity, right? That things slowing down. So understand any speed or concern about the speed. One, we've certainly we have choreographed this, and this timeline hasn't changed. And secondly, the speed is solely to the benefit of the business owners. It's not because there's nothing that, you know, the city can start in February, they can start in March, they can start in April. We want to start in January to have the minimal impact.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is last week you were talking about possibly having this workshop.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Workshop was gonna happen maybe the next week or around the 20th.
Yes.
And you would vote on the contract in December. Now the contract's gonna be voted on next week.
No, sorry, what I conveyed was we would look into having a special meeting in November
Oh.
to give an additional week. The issue became the ability for council members to attend.
Okay.
So what we did, the net benefit of doing that and then not having members there, obviously, you know, that was a clerical reason, not
Okay.
any other reason. So we are back on the schedule that we've originally prescribed, which would be that we gotta take it in November to get the funding allocated. So now that's the funding allocation. And then of course, that lines everything up to be able to start as close to January 5th as possible.
Right.
A couple other things, want to give an update on recycling. We're up to 18% of the city now. Again, we continue to beat trends that our national partners have prescribed to us as we continue to work with Recycling Partnership. There'll be another digital ad campaign hitting in November, so our citizens will start to see that more. We're up to 3,718 recycling subscribers, and again, that's out of about 20,800 total residential households. And then the next round of mail outs will go out on the week of November 10th. So just tell you that to say, even though we continue to trend in the right direction in terms of participation, we also aren't stopping with just the mail that we've already sent. We're going to continue to have another run of that of awareness coming up this month. In terms of, I know there's been delays, perceived delays, actual delays on recycling cans, garbage cans. We had some back orders on black garbage cans if somebody wanted a second one. We've had some delays on that, but we believe 5 to 7 business days from now, all of those orders will be filled. So we caught back up. We just were waiting on the manufacturer to get us some additional black cans. Veterans Day closures, obviously the city facilities will be closed Tuesday the 11th, other than the tennis center and the golf course, Osceola Golf Course. And you guys saw the news from American Magic. Just had a 3-hour meeting with all the leadership and ownership last night, and which I appreciate. Certainly, we're in constant communication. But I think that was out of certainly out of respect for the city and the citizens, so to make sure that we had all the same information. What I can tell you is I've never felt more bullish about the American Magic project today compared to even when this began. That from both the manufacturing side, and I know some of you that have been on the tour got to hear some of that. Obviously, if they want to identify who those people are and all of that, I'm going to allow American Magic to do that. But from a manufacturing side, from the partnerships with Pensacola State and UWF, there are already several local students that are already full-time employees with American Magic. So we didn't expect that to happen. When this started, we didn't expect that to happen that quickly. So from a job standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, I feel better today about this project. And I felt better last week about this project than I did than when this started. So we're still very, very excited for it. And as it pertains to the international sailing aspect of it, what I can say to you right now is I remain as bullish about being on the forefront of international sailing with this partnership today than I did last week or last month. So maybe it comes in a different form, and again, that's their news to figure out and finalize and share with you. But I have zero hesitation about this project, and their participation in the next America's Cup has no bearing on jobs, no bearing on the economic impact, and really no bearing on the long-term future of considering Pensacola the preeminent sailing destination in the United States. So just again, not wanting to not share details with you, but those are not my details to share. But I would expect that you guys will be hearing details on both of those fronts, both on the manufacturing side and on the sailing side in the coming weeks. That is, just one quick one, the 9th Avenue Stormwater Outfall Project. The remaining Romana Street improvements right there by VMP should be completed on Friday, and just in time for the Veterans Day festivities there at VMP. So should be good to go there, and all clear for Veterans Day following Tuesday. That's everything I've got. I'm happy to take your questions.
Mayor Reeves, circling back to the city of Palafox, obviously
Yeah.
Pensacola bigger and better every day, but why do you feel the time is now to strike on a project like this at the expense of maybe upsetting some business owners?
Yeah, so again, and that's why we wanted to have dedicated meetings to share facts. When news had come out and when folks had been in council the previous week, that was premature before we'd even met with the contractor. Meaning there's lots of details that no one knew, including the mayor, including our administration, our public works team, all of that. So getting that clarity, I think, was important. So I really look at conversations that took place or reports that took place last week versus this week. I'm not saying whether those folks they may still disagree with the project, but what I can guarantee you is that we all are now speaking from a more centralized set of facts than perhaps what was spoken on in previous weeks. So that's number one. And number two is the genesis of this project is very simple. We were going to be required to demolish and cut up and repave this road, no matter what. And I think that is very lost in the public conversation about this. This is not this project versus doing nothing. Because doing nothing leaves all the utility cuts in the road that FDL put in 2000 when they did their work in 2022. So what we're really comparing is, would you like to have what we estimated 60 days of work to only get asphalt that ends halfway at the block? It was not a complete thought. There's no stormwater improvement, no ADA improvement, no pedestrian safety improvement. None of that would have taken place, merely asphalt for 60 days. Or do we want to look at a project that might be, for some, even less than 5 months? But right now, they are greatly incentivized the contractor to be done in 5 months. And that when that takes place, you now have 1,700 linear feet of stormwater pipe. We can now hold 93,000 gallons of stormwater that does not exist on the road. Currently, 46 ADA improvements. Everything from the raised crosswalks that really signal to the driver to slow down because it's a speed bump, but also to have bicyclists and pedestrians feel like this is their street too, I think means a lot. And so it was a simple math equation to say, if we can have this transformational change that sets us up for generations to come, many things that need to take place, we shouldn't look at this short-sightedly and just go back and repave the road if we had an opportunity to do something like this. Because if we decided after, if we just repaved it, when will we ever be putting the stormwater in? When will we ever be putting those improvements in? So that it just seemed to be the most logical time to strike at that. And so we're just trying to be as opportunistic as possible.
On American Magic, when we did the tour in September, the thought was the warehouse get its CO this week. Is that still on?
It might get delayed a week or two, and all of that is
Like
on
every project, like everything.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
city.
That's only on some specific requests from American Magic. Meaning, if it was just about what the city's obligation was to the project, we would already be done. It was just they wanted some last minute additions, things that they're putting the cost for. So the 2 or 3 week delay is kind of the icing on the cake, so to speak, of things that they are working with the contractor and funding that they wanted to kind of make sure they got right.
Does that change the grand opening?
No. Yeah,
So that's still slated for January?
First week of January.
First week.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I believe it's their invitation to send out, but I
Right.
believe it's January 7th is what we're shooting for.
Okay. Barring stuff.
That, exactly. That was the 9th, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Mayor, on the subject of sharing details,
Mhm.
a couple of pressers ago, you said you'd come back with more updates on ST Engineering's accounting or auditing,
Mhm.
and we missed that one, but
Yeah,
do
so,
you have any?
well, I can tell you, I know I just reviewed the quarterly report, the jobs report that, as required by us, it goes through, and we now, of course, get more detailed information than what was previously required ever since the conversations we had with them a year ago. and they have more jobs at a higher salary than they've ever had. So the report back to us is somewhere in the $87,000 range for the average salary, which is up pretty significantly. It's 638 jobs, I believe they've got on right now. Give or take a job or two, it might be 635. I'll have to look at it, but that's just a report we've gotten from them. So what I can tell you is when you look at the trend lines of average pay and how many people are there, they are at an unprecedented level at this point, both in volume and both in salary. So that in terms of details, what jobs those are, obviously, I would defer that to ST to discuss.
Did they tell you how much of that job growth was coming out of the closure of the Mobile facility?
No, it's not outlined in that. Again, I would probably defer you to Travis Peterson, who does their stuff with ST. He'll have much more detailed information to share with you. But certainly we were encouraged and pleased to see more jobs on site and a higher salary on site that's ever been reported so far in all of the quarters that we've received information.
Mayor, is the plan with Baptist Hospital for the contract for demolition to go before the city council next week? Or I guess, can you talk about what you're expecting out of that vote and what the latest is with finding a, I guess, redevelopment advisor, is what you're calling it?
Yeah, I think we're in the, we'll get you exact details. I think we're either in the final throes of both. I mean, we are still slated to have a redevelopment advisor on board with us in December and for the process of demolition to start in December. So yes, there are votes going next week. One of them, of course, is the reallocate, the additional delta of dollars that when we did receive from the county. So we have to go close that with CRA and handle that financial procedure as well. But yes, both of those votes are going, and then with the hope of starting them in December. Whether we've gotten through, I'll have to get with our team whether we formally on the selection of the development advisor. I could get you down to the day of where we are. I know that is at its end. I don't know if it's been a selection in a protest period or if that selection hasn't been. Let me find out exactly where we are. But
My understanding is the selection committee is meeting tomorrow for
Okay.
their presentations, at least. But so, are you saying the redevelopment advisor contract's gonna go next week too?
Oh, no,
Okay.
that would go in December. That's not on the draft agenda I just saw. But what is the demolition and the funding of the delta of demolition. Those are on
I guess there's been. I guess let me ask it this way: Are you where are you at as far as when you select a redevelopment advisor, including people in the neighborhood for their community engagement and their input on what their design, and can you kind of also explain exactly what the job of the redevelopment advisor is? Because I guess it's going to be a maybe decade project that they're going to be basically writing the master plan for. Is that?
So a couple of things. There was some confusion, and I think confusion with one of our council members about how the selection committee for a procurement works versus a community group works. So there's two completely different things. The first one is our members until I don't know this. I'm 99% sure. I'm not 100% sure on this, but the precedent of the city is that someone that's on a procurement selection committee has been a city employee, and there's a reason for that. It's because there are many statutes, city policies, ordinances that protect the sanctity and transparency of that process. Meaning, to have someone from outside the community be on a selection committee in a formal RFP has been unprecedented until we got here. I really asked the same question, and so we've had a couple select times, including this one, with former Councilwoman Jewel Canada Wynn is on, and that we've had a handful of times where we said, hey, we want to have one person who is outside the community, who also has an understanding of these rules, that whatever background that they come from, they would understand that you're not allowed to talk to certain people during certain times. All of those, the rules that don't get us in a situation where we award a bid that we have to go do again because we missed that. So there's a lot of misunderstanding about what that is versus what community engagement, community meetings, some type of committee for Baptists that we could have externally from the actual procurement process, if that makes sense. The second part of your question, what would this group do? This group is being asked to use their expert opinion to assess exactly what is possible at Baptist. But as I've told you guys before, we have a very specific request that they help us to decide what is realistically possible. And I think, including in this project in years past, there's been conversations about what would you like to see in the world, and whether you pick this type of healthcare or a Ferris wheel or this or that, you pick all these things and then you disappoint the community because they said, well, wait, we told you we wanted this, and then it doesn't happen. And so I'm not an expert in that. I can't tell you what every aspect of a 38-acre project, what would or wouldn't pencil. So we bring on someone that has executed a project. I mean, that has been the rubric, is whoever is selected from this is going to be a group that has shown the ability to start and finish a project like this that says, hey, we've tried that before and it doesn't work, or we've tried this and it does work. So we want there to be reality in the room, not just big ideas. We love big ideas. I love big ideas. But so we are asking them to do that, and we're asking them to lead the community engagement aspect. So if there's going to be a community group selected or anything like that, then we want to certainly respect that process and allow that to be coordinated and run through that development advisor, and not have the city do kind of its own thing and then have the development advisor start over again or confuse anybody. We're already kind of talking about that right now, is the validity of having these meetings. We wanted to have kickstart meetings with the community to say we're out there, but we're now so close to the start of the project, do we want to do that? It caused some type of confusion, or not have our expert in the room for one of these meetings. So we're even discussing that right now. But our goal is going to be the same. And again, I think the Hollis T. Williams project probably is the best shining example of what our expectations are in community engagement. 30+ meetings and hundreds and hundreds of people engaged. So we look for a similar process from a community engagement standpoint that we saw with Hollis T. Williams.
And I know the previous administration signed up for the covenant for the community, which I'm sure you're familiar with, obviously. But I guess, will this project adhere to that, or as far as the demolition project?
Well, as someone that I was part of the team that helped promote that the city and county do that when I worked for Clint, so I'm very familiar with it. Certainly philosophically there, but I think one understanding is, we can request that. We cannot legally request that. I mean, we can't, and so it's really there as an advisory thing, both at the city and county level. And I remember that was the conversation when I helped put that forward back in, I don't remember exactly what year. I remember specifically the county commission, is the advice to them was, hey, you can't absolutely require that, or else that you can't be binding, or you would fire them from the contract. It's really more of a, hey, this is what we want to see. And so we want as much participation from the local community as we possibly can, of course. As a matter of fact, we talk a lot about the South Palafox project. We don't talk about that every single contractor of that. The contractors, the subs, everybody else is local. So, so we want that. We want that money reinvested here. The genesis of the covenant for the community is to do our best to keep those dollars that are being invested here. In the case of a very specialized demolition, obviously having demolition companies here that have knocked down fuel plants and things like that, that's going to be harder to find from a contractor standpoint. But we certainly hope that everybody is going to be signing on subcontractors that are local when we can. So again, that is my understanding of it. Is there, it's not a binding thing, it's really kind of more of a resolution, more of a, hey, we hope that this is what their commitment is. And that my feeling about that hasn't changed. It's just, what can you do from a legal standpoint? Probably not much. Yeah.
Mayor, are you gonna have a meeting coming up here pretty soon with the Dawson Group, Inspire, regarding their status at Maritime Park? And if so, what are you expecting from that?
I just had a meeting with them Monday on a couple of the modifications that they're going back to ARB. They've said I have not looked at it closely yet, but they have said these are changes that don't even have to go back to ARB, but they want to bring them forward, and a little bit of a reduction in height was one of them. Adding some windows is one of them. All what I would believe is consensus positive things that people would want to see. So I just had a meeting with them about that on Monday. They still owe us information on how they want to strategize around parking structures and all of that. So parcel, to answer your question, the parcel for how do you fund a parking garage, we are, the ball's in their court to come to us with that menu of proposals and see if it's something that we want to move forward. But they are, the next action you're going to see from them publicly, I believe, will be some minor changes to parcel 5, as that continues to roll.
Is the reduction in height gonna be a reduction in floors,
No.
the financeable space that you're?
No. And again, I'll let them give you all the details, but there'll be a small reduction in height, no reduction of floors, no reduction in units, no reduction in hotel fees.
Mayor, going back to I just want to be sure I understand. The vote next week is on the funding. Is that also going to be the contract that's voted on?
Or do we have a second item maybe on the actual contract order for South Palafox? I don't think we did.
So that is still out there, so there's still changes that can be made.
Well,
somewhat.
I was gonna say, I wanna be
I
careful.
know you don't want to go down that path.
No, but it is important to distinct, because when you go to a formal RFP,
Right.
there is a misunderstanding that, well, this has been awarded, but we can change these parking bays or that.
Right.
You bid it at that price, you
Right.
can't do substantive
But
changes.
the whole point last week was there is no contract. I mean, that was
Yes.
one of the points that was made.
There is no contract.
So there still won't be a contract signed next week.
That's correct.
That will come up before the council in December.
The dollar allocations will take place in
The
November.
budgeting is, how will we pay for
It is on the agenda.
The second one.
What contract is on the
Oh, yeah,
agenda.
there you go.
it? Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad I asked.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So next week is it? I
Yes,
mean, so
yes.
that's it, or
But
maybe not.
But again, I want to clarify, whether it was November or December for the award of contract is
It's gonna change the
irrelevant.
beginning of the project, I know,
Yeah.
but the point is, for the public to know, that is the drop dead day.
That's correct.
is next
Both
week.
meetings, both
Both
the CRA
right,
and
Okay.
the meeting on Thursday. And yes, again, whatever timeline we've been on, whether I've got the dates right or not, whatever timeline we've been on has not.
Right, that's not gonna change,
Yeah.
I don't think,
Yeah,
that's not my expectation.
And the discussion with the contractor was, if we get too far down the road, and so circling back to your previous question, the reason we talked about a special meeting to buy another week, we probably could have done that, to have another week for the award of bid to have taken place, but then we don't have council members
Right,
with
well,
you there, so
So
our
that's
choice is
the-
either now or miss January
Right,
5th.
right, okay.
Yeah. But I do, again, I maintain, as you heard me tell the lessees, why we laid out what the 3 options are. The 3 options, as we sit here right now, before anything's awarded, is leave the utility cuts in the road, go back to bid and only do the FPL project,
Right.
or do the project as proposed. And the reason I laid those out in that fashion is many of the perceived solutions that come to me is these hybrid solutions that aren't
Right.
legal, or we would have to start all over again and all that to say, okay, well, why don't we just do the FPL and then add this and add this and add this? And as you heard me share, that is what we did. That is precisely what we did. We said, all right, we got to get the FPL project done. What are the things that we want to add in this project And so I think there's this misperception that we've started with a big high budget number and we've spared no expense. And no, we did exactly what some of the folks that are against the project were suggesting, which is we got the road cut open. What are the things generationally that we want to do to make this successful? And so I kind of was trying to convey to that person in particular that what you're prescribing is what we feel we did. There's not a lot of extra options between the two things that we talked about. You guys saw, we had the value engineer out, or we couldn't accept the bollards, we couldn't accept the Garden Street improvements. I mean, this is, we already are on the budget that we're on, that doesn't really have everything we want in it, but gets us moving down the road.
All right, one more question.
Yeah.
All right, so the
I
CRA.
won't hold you to that.
I'm not gonna ask if you're a five. That's
Right.
6, 7. What we'll do is, so the CRA meeting, is the CRA meeting and the council both gonna be voting on this? The CRA, or both those meetings report on this?
I know for a fact that the CRA meeting is voting because of CRA dollars. It's
So they're
voting.
gonna vote on the funding?
Yeah,
And then the
I don't know
contract-
that the CRA would vote on the contractor. I'm looking at city administration out there.
I believe the CRA board, because CRA dollars are involved, the CRA board has to vote to recommend a city.
Oh,
That's what it is. That's
All
right. That's right.
So there are two meetings, just so that the public understands what, because this is a pretty big vote.
Yeah.
Or 2 votes now. So the CRA and then the county, city council meeting will be the next body of the apple.
Right. So that's what it was.
Right.
It was that the CRA would then vote to recommend the approval of the contract with the contractor, but they don't take the official vote because the council has to. So,
Okay. All right.
but absolutely, both the CRA and council will vote on the funding aspect, and then of course the council will formally vote on the contract.
Okay.
Question on micro-mobility, now that the scooters have ended the test mode.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on golf carts? They seem to be a big thing here recently. I noticed throughout the downtown urban core,
Yeah.
you see more and more of them flying the streets with kind of look like a resort.
Are you talking about like a vendor, like commercially doing that?
Sure, like an element of a micro-mobility
Sure.
program.
Yeah.
I mean, and
I would be open to that, if it was, in a commercial, type setting. My previous experience with that is, the insurance on that is very, very high. If someone can figure out how to make that, pencil, a good entrepreneur out there could figure out how to do that, I certainly would be open to it. I think there'd be some value, and not only during construction, things like that, where you've got other, folks that need to move around a little bit more, but even in the long term. But everything I've ever heard about that, and I might be on old information, but everything I've ever heard is the insurance price to be putting people on there commercially, that, if there is, God forbid, ever an accident or something like that, usually it's not a minor one. So, that becomes a pretty difficult thing to pencil. But if someone can figure out, and I know people will say, well, they do that at the beach. I don't know if that's different than in a, I don't pretend to know the first thing about how insurance calculates those types of things. So someone has figured out in our community how to do it. But I would absolutely be open to that conversation downtown, and I believe I should be getting a report from Caitlin here probably in the next week. I know it's in its final approvals, that kind of says, all right, if we want to come back with micromobility, here's what bicycles would look like, here's what something like that would, So I should be getting a report from our transportation folks on what a potential next step if we decide to go that road would look like. I don't think golf carts will be on there, to be clear. That'll have to be someone else. I don't think we're gonna take that on, but if someone can figure out how to do it and it's an amenity for the community, certainly we'd entertain that.
I got one last question.
Yeah.
Florida State or Clemson? Rick's cap kind of reminded me.
I was surprised to see how well they played last week. I was very pessimistic, so I'm always going to pull for FSU, and I think it's a very interesting time in college football right now. And it's not that y'all are here to ask me about that, but this Wild West that we're in college football, where anybody can play anywhere, and every team has 60 new players every year. I don't think until they change how players are joining teams and what those rules are, I think we're going to see this mass exodus of coaches like this all the time. I've never seen anything like it in the 15 plus years that I was doing it every day. This is the most unregulated, wild time in the sport, and I'm kind of worried about it, to be honest with you. I'm kind of worried about the long-term health of the sport right now until they get something figured out.
So how would you handicap this game?
I don't know, what's the spread? I haven't seen it. I trust the guys in Las Vegas, I know, or who's your guy, Rick's, your picks, who was it?
Gizmo.
Gizmo, right, I
The
trust
oldest
Gizmo.
altar boy in Pensacola.
I trust Gizmo, listen, I don't know, I think going on the road is tough, and, we'll see what happens. I think Mike Norvell's a great guy, I certainly want the university to do well. I don't even know what to predict anymore right now in college football. I think that's really my ultimate point. It's so crazy out there right now, and there's gonna be a new coach fired every week because we're based on these old expectations that you can win 9 and 10 and 11 games every year, like one of these blue blood programs. I don't think that's ever. We're gonna have teams that win a national title and then win 4 games, and then if we stay the way we are. And since that's not the way that our brains are trained as fans, then we're gonna have a guy win a national title and then fire him the next year, and then pay $56 million in a buyout, and so it's just I feel sad for the state of what's happening in college football right now, mainly around just how it's regulated. So that's my way of saying, hell, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna watch it just like you.
I just needed a marketable soundbite.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I'm not claiming to fire anybody. I'm looking in your camera. I want everybody to try hard. Anything else?
Well, Mayor, sorry to get
Go
off
ahead.
college football, but,
No, that's all right.
back on Baptist Hospital,
Yeah.
the city council's gonna have a workshop, I assume at some point to talk about the two kind of properties, I guess it's technically 6 properties that might be sold, but I guess if the contract is going next week and, there's the funding gap, where's in the short term, I guess, where's that money gonna come from? Is it the West Side CRA dollars, and is that I guess it's been the plan at this point? Is there anything that the West Side CRA isn't doing because of that, or has it been?
No, that's always been the plan, to say, hey, if we've got a delta, then it naturally makes sense for it to come out of the West Side CRA, because the West Side CRA is gonna be the beneficiary of any revenues, moving forward. If we ended up selling some of those properties, or all of those properties, whatever the case may be, that's my pledge to the council, is to say, well, then we would obviously replace that West Side CRA revenue with any revenues that would come in from the sale of those properties. But, I met with Councilman Wiggins, and again, clearly a misunderstanding between, what our goal is here. But in my mind, any disposition or donation has to go back to council. So the idea that we shouldn't do that, all that does is, let's say I come to an agreement with a healthcare organization that wants to put low-income healthcare in the community. Let's say that happens, and I think there's conversations already happening about that. Then we can bring that back in December, and then we'll wait another 30 days for it to be disposed of from the legal standpoint. That's our legal obligation before we can even enter into that contract. And so I'm not 100% sure what we were gaining by, and what, as Council President Moore said, this does not preclude us from doing anything. I think there's just always this big misunderstanding somehow around what disposition means. Disposition means that is our legal obligation to notify the community that we could potentially sell it. That does not mean the mayor gets to go sell it for whatever he believes it's worth, or donate it to whoever he wants without any check and balance. That is not the case. So I'm not really sure what we saved ourselves from with that vote, other than what I believe to be just a misunderstanding. I've had a conversation with Councilman Wiggins since then, and explained that, and explained to him some of the prospects that we're looking at, and that we're wide open to donations that are net better for the community, and we're open to donations about price, and we're open to any feedback that Councilman Wiggins has, or any other council member has. If they've got a nonprofit organization that can do something good in the community, and they want us to talk to them, happy to do that. So we come into what we would do those 3 parcels with no preconceived plan whatsoever, other than striking the right balance between, if we need revenue, and that is the priority of the city, then we have the ability to close the delta. And if we want to donate all 3 properties to good, hardworking healthcare opportunity and everything else, I'm absolutely excited and optimistic about that. So all we were trying to do clerically was get us in a better position to be nimble to bring something back to them. That now all that would happen is I could go to a meeting in December, I could say, hey, we've got this agreement, you know, I wanna propose this donation to X company, and then we'll start the process of this 30-day disposition. You know, so it really just slows us down by 30 days. ultimately.
Do you think, is that, so with that happening, Councilman Wiggins was essentially saying at the city council meeting that, you know, he didn't want to move on anything before the neighborhood had an opportunity to weigh in. Do you think that this project needs to be handled maybe a little bit differently than other city projects? Or maybe like the most, if you would want to handle it as a what's in a way that I guess builds trust with the people in the neighborhood rather than, and that may mean delaying things or doing things slower, or how are you approaching?
Well,
that
so are you
project?
speaking specifically to the out parcels or
I
to the
guess
entire project?
to the entire project, but maybe the out parcels is an example of what could happen if you move too quickly or do something that is misperceived by the
Yeah.
neighborhood. Or,
Well, so, and again, and I think that's how you just ended that question is the most important distinction, which is the disposition of isn't moving any quicker than what we would already be doing. It's the clerical requirement for us. I mean, to me, how do I have any conversation with a healthcare organization or anything without the idea that technically, legally speaking, we're not even allowed to sell those properties yet. Now, we can assume that we would be. So we're talking about perception. We're not talking about reality, that something's moving faster.
but I guess a
and-
project like this isn't,
yeah.
for getting the community buy-in, isn't perception reality.
Well, listen, I mean, at some point, I do feel like if there's been an administration that has worked more exhaustively for community engagement, I don't know. I've never seen it. There are no handbooks in City Hall anywhere that says this is how we should do community engagement that is any bigger than ours. And we can prove it with Hollis C. Williams, with several projects, with Bruce Beach, previously that I was part of on the other side. That was another good example. But we have a very high expectation of community engagement. And if Councilman Wiggins he can be on the forefront of any way he wants to do community engagement. If he has ideas about how he wants to have meetings, if he wants to run meetings, love it. I'd love everybody to jump on in. I mean, we want as much community engagement as possible. But this cannot always be a Monday morning quarterback situation to say, well, why didn't we do this or why didn't we do that? We're wide open to do anything, any way somebody wants to, especially with our elected officials. So we can't Monday morning quarterback. If there's someone that would like to give feedback on how meetings should go, or they don't like that this is happening or that's happening, as we should be wide open to that. But I'm not sure why we have done unprecedented community engagement, yet we have to explain ourselves on how we handle community engagement all the time. I mean, we do have a plan. We're spending 6 figures to hire someone to ensure that it's done right, and that worked well at Hollis C. Williams because that was their charge, right? So I'm certainly going to defend our team and our staff that we wake up every day thinking about how we want to engage the community. And because one person says something or one person misperceives something doesn't mean we forgot how to do that. We know how to do it. But if you have suggestions on hey, this project needs to deviate this way, or we need to meet with this specific group, we'll do that all the time. We're happy to do that. But you can't lead from the back if you have concerns about how community engagement works. Jump on up front and let's lead from the front and let's do the community engagement the way we all want it to be done. So whether that's the county commission, whether that's the city, I'm happy to have those conversations with anybody. And the great news is we'll have additional bandwidth where someone's waking up every day figuring out how to do it, just like we did with Hollis T. And I know we'll get to a good place. So that would be my suggestion, and certainly something I'm going to talk about with our elected officials, that anybody that has any thoughts or feedback or constructive criticism about how we should be handling community engagement, we're all ears. Anything else? All right, thanks, guys.